What is up, everybody? It's Animac here for Anime Uproar, and today I will be discussing the most recent developments in Boku no Hero, including the strong possibility that the tables are about to be turned yet again in the epic battle against Shigaraki. In fact, the latest installment of the story may have just warned us that Deku's body is breaking down from pushing One for All too far. Something that All Might may have been aware of, but chose not to share with Deku. We've got so much to discuss, so let's get into it. If you enjoyed the Boku no Hero content here on the channel and you want us to keep it going, please leave a like to let me know, it really does help. And if you happen to be new to the channel or you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications. That is the only way to make sure that you will be notified when we upload a video. You can also hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at Anime Uproar. Finally, this video will of course contain Boku no Hero manga spoilers. We're talking about the latest developments in the story, so please proceed with caution. You have been warned. The action picks up with Deku floating in the air and using Black Whip to keep all the other heroes airborne right along with him. But not only is Deku keeping the other heroes in the air, he is also using Black Whip to keep Shigaraki in the air. Deku knows that if Shigaraki gets a chance to touch the ground again, he will unleash another horrifying wave of destruction. And even though Deku and the heroes would be safe because they are currently in the air, the rest of the city would be in grave danger. So Deku decides to try and forcibly keep Shigaraki off the ground, which leads to an incredible airborne showdown. However, we have to remember that Deku's control of Black Whip and Float is still not perfect. He just unlocked Float moments ago, and Black Whip is still a relatively new quirk for him. We can't forget that most people have had their entire lives to perfect a single quirk, but Deku is now forced to juggle multiple new quirks that he hasn't had a chance to master. And this means that while Deku has been able to stop Shigaraki from causing further damage for the time being, Deku's Black Whip plus Float strategy is by no means perfect. Even the smallest mistake from Deku at this point in time could lead to a complete disaster for everyone involved. After forcing Shigaraki into the air, Deku releases the heroes and tells them to take care of Gran Torino and Aizawa, who are both in need of immediate medical attention. Endeavor tells Shoto to administer first aid to the wounded, but as all of this is happening, Endeavor is extremely frustrated by the fact that he isn't able to contribute much to the fight. Endeavor has already used up almost all of his firepower in the previous chapters, and he is now overheating. As the #1 pro hero, Endeavor feels responsible for protecting everyone, and he certainly doesn't like the idea of a student like Deku risking his life while the #1 pro hero sits back and watches. But at this time and under these circumstances, there isn't much that Endeavor can do, at least not yet. He needs to recuperate before he can start fighting again, and that means that most of the heavy burden of stopping Shigaraki must fall on Deku, at least for now. As Deku and Shigaraki engage in aerial combat, which is pretty awesome, I have to say, Shigaraki doesn't seem fazed by the fact that he was forced off of the ground by Deku. In fact, Shigaraki mocks Deku. He threatens to steal One for All, and since they all like the sky so much, Shigaraki vows to send Deku and all of the others straight up to heaven. I mean, say what you will about Shigaraki, but you have to respect a man who is able to use puns in such a dire situation. However, Deku isn't having any of it. He proclaims that he won't allow Shigaraki to keep hurting people, and then he lunges at Shigaraki with all of his might. And then, just as these two overpowered multiple quirk users are about to make contact, and just as we are all on the edge of our seats wondering how this battle is going to unfold, you guessed it, it's flashback time. Sometime in the recent past, All Might gathered a bunch of the Class 1A students to help Deku train in order to master his new powers. This includes Bakugo of course, but also Ochako, Sero, and Tsuyu. Officially, All Might wanted Deku to improve his control of Black Whip, but secretly, All Might wanted to use the other students, and Ochako in particular, to prepare Deku for mastering Nana's quirk Float before it even manifests. Also, this flashback features Deku with an epic fro, since apparently his training sessions with Bakugo and Bakugo's constant use of explosions have affected Deku's hair. Hey, it's not a bad look for Deku, not bad at all, so I'm here for it. Now, Sero's tape quirk and I assume Tsuyu's tongue-based abilities are both helpful for Deku in terms of learning to use and control Black Whip. But Ochako was brought on for an entirely different purpose. All Might wants her to teach Deku to control his mobility while floating in midair. The students don't necessarily understand the significance of this since they don't know that Deku is about to unlock yet another quirk. But I actually think that this was a brilliant idea by All Might. Ochako's zero gravity quirk can essentially allow her to mimic the same conditions that float produces. And so this allows Deku to essentially practice using float in combination with One for All and Black Whip before he even unlocks the quirk itself. As a result of All Might's big brain move, Deku is able to practice keeping his balance and even propelling himself through the air using Air Force. So essentially, Deku is able to practice using One for All, Black Whip, and Float before he even gets Float. And this means that when Float does finally manifest, Deku will already have some experience with using all three quirks at the same time. Instead of starting from scratch and learning to use a brand new quirk in real time, Deku will have a solid head start. This one simple idea by All Might likely made the difference between life and death, and that is not an exaggeration. If Deku had manifested Float when he did and he had no prior knowledge of how to use it, even a single moment of hesitation could have been exploited by Shigaraki, and this could have led to the death of Deku and all the other heroes who are currently present. This short training flashback actually adds a lot of valuable context to the story, and it explains why Deku is already able to use Float so effectively on the battlefield, although I'm sure that his mastery of the new quirk is still far from perfect. And while Deku was undergoing that zero gravity training, All Might and Bakugo had an interesting discussion. They talked about the possibility of the other students finding out about the true nature of One for All, and they also talked about the responsibility that comes with having a great power. But then Bakugo said something even more interesting. Bakugo said that in the notebook that he left about One for All and all its previous users, All Might included detailed descriptions for all the former users except for the fourth user. So essentially, for many of the previous users, All Might included the information about their quirk and even some stuff about their lives like how they died. But for some reason, the entry about the fourth user was only half finished, and if you look at the image, it also appears that All Might scribbled some stuff out. Bakugo straight up asks All Might if he found out something about One for All that he is hiding from Deku. All Might claims that he hasn't found anything conclusive, and he doesn't want to speculate about things that he's not sure of. But it is clear that both All Might and Bakugo appear to be worried about Deku. And this actually got me thinking, what is the mystery of the fourth One for All user? The user who is most likely that guy with the scar on his face. And could there be some additional drawbacks to using One for All that we are still not aware of? Could it be that the fourth user died because of these drawbacks? And maybe All Might has figured that out, and so as not to worry Deku, he decided to exclude the way that he died from the entry. It definitely sounds like there's something going on with the fourth user, but All Might doesn't seem to know exactly what, because if he was sure, I'm sure that he would tell Deku. At this point in time, my own personal guess is that the fourth user may have died as a result of some unknown drawback associated with One for All. Maybe he pushed his body too far and pushed One for All to its breaking point, and maybe his body began to break down just like Shigaraki's has been breaking down in the last few chapters. We can see that both Bakugo and All Might are worried about Deku because he never thinks of himself, and he is always ready to go all out and risk his own life for the sake of others. If there is some additional unknown drawback to using One for All and Deku ends up pushing himself too hard, he could bring about his own destruction, and that could be what happened to the fourth One for All user. With how often the tables have been turning during this arc, it wouldn't surprise me at all if something like this happens to Deku and this makes him lose his advantage over Shigaraki. With Shigaraki's body breaking down and Deku unlocking a new quirk, it definitely seems like Deku has the upper hand at this point in time. But as I said, with the way that things have been going so far in this arc, that could change very quickly. At the end of their conversation, Bakugo and All Might move on from talking about Deku to talking about Bakugo himself. This part was actually really cool because Bakugo straight up admits that he used to bully Deku because he couldn't deal with his own weaknesses. Bakugo was just projecting his own fears and his own lack of confidence onto Deku. And Bakugo appears to truly regret that now, and he wants to atone for his mistakes by helping Deku get stronger. This is definitely some respectable Bakugo character development, so kudos to Bakugo for that. All Might then goes on to say that the reason why he had compared Bakugo and Endeavor in the past is because both of them had serious issues with ego and hubris. But both of them are now undergoing a major change. Endeavor couldn't take a good look at himself until All Might was forced to retire and the responsibility of being the #1 pro hero fell to him. And Bakugo couldn't really take a good look at himself until he saw how hard Deku was working and how committed Deku was to helping others, even at the cost of his own body and his own safety. So yeah, Horikoshi is committed to demonstrating that even deeply flawed people have the capacity to evolve and change. And Endeavor and Bakugo are both examples of this very thing. Back in the present, as Deku and Shigaraki engage in an epic aerial battle, Deku is using 100% of his power to tear into Shigaraki. But even though he is using that much power, Shigaraki is still able to adapt to the 100% attacks. However, it is clear that Shigaraki's wounds are healing slower than before, and the damage is sticking. The super regeneration that Shigaraki uses is no longer being as effective as it should be, and this means that Shigaraki's body is continuing to break down. But all is not well for Deku either. It appears that his last two 100% attacks wrecked his left arm, and so now he must try to strike the final blow with his right. Deku prepares for an all-out attack on Shigaraki. He is about to literally give it everything he's got. And as this happens, what do you know, Deku is thinking that no matter what happens to him, he must destroy Shigaraki at all cost. And then the final pages of the chapter show Deku landing a massive hit to Shigaraki's midsection. As I said earlier, for the moment, things look really good for Deku, and they certainly don't look good for Shigaraki, but that could change very quickly. This arc has given us a bunch of such twists and turns, and I have the feeling that another one is coming. It's no coincidence that right after we see the flashback of Bakugo and All Might, and in the flashback they're worrying about Deku because he tends to go all out without regard for his own safety, Deku straight up confirms that he will go all out against Shigaraki without regard for his own personal safety. Deku just landed a massive hit on Shigaraki, and it looks like Bakugo and Endeavor down on the ground are preparing to give Deku some additional backup as well. So things are looking pretty good for the heroes. Nevertheless, I have a sneaking suspicion that Deku is about to reach his limit. And I believe that his body may begin to break down in some ways now that he is using 3 quirks and going all out without any regard for his own safety. There must be a good reason why the 4th user of One for All was brought up in this chapter, and why his entry was only half finished. The fact that All Might appears to have scribbled out parts of it is also very sus, as if he was attempting to hide something from Deku, maybe trying to protect Deku from some inconvenient information. As I said earlier, my guess is that the 4th user might have died as a result of overusing One for All or some other side effect that Deku doesn't know about. If this were the case, or if this is rumored to have been the case, then perhaps All Might scribbled out that part because he didn't want to scare Deku until he found out for sure. If I'm right, and One for All does have some additional hidden drawback that Deku doesn't know about, then that drawback is probably going to kick in right about now, and that will be how the tables between Shigaraki and Deku are going to turn yet again. Whatever happens, this fight is definitely not over, and I really can't see it ending before Gigantomachia and Dabi and the others arrive at the scene. With Dabi in particular, I still believe that he is about to confront Endeavor and Shoto in Jakku. So, even though Deku appears to be wrecking Shigaraki at the moment, I don't believe that Shigaraki is about to be defeated, at least not yet. There are more twists and turns to come in this battle, and it is far from over. But let me know what you guys think. What is the real truth behind the fate of the 4th One For All user, and why was All Might being so sus about him? Do you believe that One For All has a hidden drawback that is about to affect Deku? Or do you think that Deku might really win this fight against Shigaraki sooner rather than later? Finally, when do you think that Makia and the other villains are going to arrive, and what is going to be their actual contribution to this fight? Don't forget to share your thoughts down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more Boku no Hero videos right here on the channel, please leave a like to let me know. It really does help. And if you're new to the channel, or maybe you watch it but you just haven't subscribed, make this the video that you subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications. To make sure that YouTube will actually notify you about our videos, it's not enough to just click subscribe. You have to go through the trouble of hitting the bell and then selecting the option that says all. It's definitely annoying, but that's how YouTube works. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at Anime Uproar. I want to give a big thank you to all of our Anime Uproar patrons for making videos like this one possible. A very special thank you to Alpha Sigma and Liam Thompson, disciples of Lord Twigo himself. And I can't forget all of our The One tier patrons, including Ingrata, The World, A Quiet Respect, Patehefa, Jonathan King, Rathuin Deora, Emperor Otaku, Thomas Jones, Kinmano, Admirath, and Chris Torley. Finally, thank you also to our Pro Hero tier patrons, including the one and only Gilgamesh, Nothing But a Fan, Kings Eldris, Anatoly Kazatsky, Angel Cruz, Cricket XP, Joe Stanton, Very Gucci, Alicia Octor, Hinokami and Water, Bonnie Parks, Jason Wilson, Florian, Joanne Garcia, Steelers, McShamus, Jessica Calafond, Deadly Saint, and Stern Hawkins. If you enjoy our videos and you feel that they provide value for you, consider supporting us on Patreon. Even a single dollar will give you access to our patron exclusive Discord, and your name will appear in our videos along with these amazing people. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, see ya, Space Cowboys.